Well, Beneath the Waterline essentially was an idea I had about a year ago, um, to try and film as many freshwater fish in the UK as possible, because essentially no one had really done that before. They hadn't done lots of species. Certainly fish like carp and barbel and chub and stuff had been filmed, but I wanted to do some of the really rare stuff, and some of the little stuff as well that gets underlooked. And essentially, I wanted to do this, but I didn't have a way of getting funded to do it. So I went to Kickstarter, which is a crowdfunding website, and essentially you make a little plea or a little appeal. You send it to them. If they approve it, it goes on their website, and then you have to send out invitations and whatever to get people to donate money, essentially, to it. And I thought, well, this is a great way, because in this way I don't have to go to one organisation and ask them for a large sum of money. I can just go to the general public and ask them to donate small amounts of money. And I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to be instant or if it was going to take a while. And what the sum of money I asked for was £3,000, which sounds like a lot of money, but realistically, £3,000 to make a wildlife film is not a lot, really, when you think that I've got to pay for travel, accommodation, cameramen, camera women, editors, all these different things out of that pot of money, and there isn't really any backup if I run out. So budgeting was something that I had to really think about. But it turns out that in the end, we got there. We actually ended up raising £3,500, so we actually raised a little bit more money. So that was fantastic. And you know, I was really supportive with various wildlife groups, helped promote it with social media. Anglers Mail were very helpful because they did a little piece on it, advertising it. So a lot of anglers, and I would say the vast majority of people who donated were anglers, and you'd expect that because obviously there's a lot of angling interest with freshwater fish. So that's how it started essentially, and then the planning began. From my point of view, I often thought that freshwater fish are very, very sorely underrepresented in the media. And there's a few reasons why. I mean, obviously they're very difficult to film, as I've now got the experience to tell you. Freshwater fish are very spooky. Certain species are not particularly common, so they're quite difficult to find. And obviously they're in the water, so you either have to go in the water with them, or you have to use some kind of long pole or something. So it's not easy filming, and that's probably another reason why not many people have gone after filming all these fish, because it is incredibly hard. But I often think, you know, the same fish get used over and over again. Salmon are on TV all the time, and I love salmon. Salmon are fantastic. But we've got lots and lots of other amazing fish that have never been shown on TV before. And I think it's a real shame that, as amazing as salmon are, I do think that there are lots of other brilliant fish with their own behaviours, their own stories, their own unique lifestyles that would make fantastic wildlife pieces. So I wanted to show them off. There were a few challenges to the project. Basically, one of the main things I had to contend with was the weather. Primarily, most of the filming went on last year, and one of the major issues is, of course, rain. Now, you might think, underwater filming, why would rain matter? But of course, rain makes water murky, and clarity is so important for what I do with my underwater filmmaking. Now, I'm probably not as purist as some underwater filmmakers who would want incredible clarity. I mean, from my point of view, as long as I can see the fish relatively clearly, I'm not too fussed. It doesn't have to be gin clear. But rain, you know, you literally get down to zero visibility sometimes. And particularly where I'm based, which is Nottinghamshire, we don't have many clear streams. We certainly don't have any chalk streams. So a lot of the rivers, once they get murky, they stay murky for ages. So that was difficult. Whenever it rained, that meant that essentially 2 weeks of filming was fit. You know, I couldn't do anything for a while. Wind as well. I mean, one of the shoots I had some of the most trouble with was the Zander shoot. Originally it was going to be on Rutland Water, but the wind kept meaning that we couldn't go out on a boat, I then was going to go on the Severn and go on Matt Hayes' boat. But again, the rain, the wind, it just meant it was impossible. So we ended up doing it on an enclosed canal in the Midlands, and it was perfect. I mean, even, and as you'll see in the film, the weather was still fairly miserable, raining and stuff, but it was still a good day, and it's shown off the subject. So weather was one of the main issues. One thing that I suppose some people might not know is for the vast majority of this project, I actually couldn't drive. I only just passed my test about 4 or 5 months ago. So most of this project has been me training or getting lifts up and down the country. I haven't been driving to locations. The eel shoot, I had to get a train to Gloucestershire, meet Andrew Kerr, who is the guy who I interviewed in the film. He very kindly picked me up and took me to the locations, and I did rely a lot on that kind of thing. So I must admit, thanks to anyone who gave me a lift throughout this project. So pretty much all was on public transport, all this filming, when I've been going all over the country, or getting lifts and whatever. So it's only now that I can actually drive and get to some of the more remote locations. So transport was a massive issue. Some of the species were incredibly elusive as well, and the main hook of the film, of course, was trying to film all 54 species. Now, I didn't film all 54, as it transpired. I got 42 of them, so I think that's pretty good. You know, some of the ones that I didn't get are things like burbot and sturgeon, which are more or less extinct. Vendace, which is our rarest confirmed freshwater fish in the UK. I would like to do Vendace, but it just, you know, there were no surveys happening over the course of the year that I could go along to, and because Vendace are so rare and they live so deep down, there's no way that I was going to be able to film any. Other species, for example, like river lamprey and shad, they're only in the rivers for a couple of weeks, and I was just busy. You know, I was already filming with Mr. Crabtree Goes Fishing when the shad were running on the Wye, so I couldn't, you know, I mean, obviously, while I've been doing this project, I've been doing my full-time job as a wildlife photographer as well, so I haven't been able to quit that. I've had to keep doing that, of course, and that takes priority over the beneath the waterline, because I have to pay the bills, of course. I don't take any money from beneath the waterline, it's all gone into the project. So it has meant that sometimes work has got in the way of some of the filming. So that has been a shame, because there's been a lot of, well, not a lot of species, but a few species I would have really liked to have got, but I just wasn't able. But I got most of them. I got the vast majority of British freshwater fish, and that was the main hook of the film. But something that I realised fairly early on, someone mentioned to me, was the original film was going to be just about half an hour of pure fish footage. And as much as I love fish, and as much as everyone else loves fish, I don't think that would be that interesting. You know, just half an hour of seeing fish swim by. And that's really when the project took a turn, and then it split into two. So the project then turned into, one half of it was filming all these species, and rather than doing one half an hour long video, very short videos of each species, and that's going to go online. At the moment I'm releasing a video, or a couple of videos every Monday of different species, and that meant that then people could pick which species they want to watch, so they don't have to watch the whole video. And also they could binge watch, essentially, because they're only about 1.5 minutes long. They're not very long videos, so it means that, you know, if you want to watch 5 or 6, you can. But then I thought, well, because the point of this film was to kind of show off some of the issues, some of the threats, some of the rare species, I thought, well, really, I need a presenter. I need someone to engage the audience and talk to them and talk to people who are helping fish. And I thought about it for a while, and I'm much more comfortable behind the camera, because I'm a cameraman or a photographer. You know, I don't really particularly enjoy being in front of the camera as much as I do behind it. But I thought, I know what I want to do, and I know what needs to be said, so it's just going to be far simpler if I present it. And that's how I got into the position of presenting it. And that's what turned it really from what would have just been a collection of clips to a proper film, essentially. A short film. I mean, it's roughly going to be about 20 minutes, half an hour long. There were so many highs of the project as well. I mean, I've met loads of fantastic people going along, lots of like-minded people. Will down at Thames Water, who is runs the Coppermill stream. It was fantastic to meet him, and kind of show, you know, he's worked along the streams and the reservoirs there with the fishing and whatnot for years, but you know, to show him these big carp, I mean, you don't really, one of the things of underwater filming is you can't really get a gauge of scale, but these carp are 20-30 pound carp, big old carp, and to show them underwater to him was fantastic. Another one was Pete down on the River Test in Hampshire, who's the river keeper, very kindly actually put me up in his house, and then we did filming before the salmon fishermen got there, and we filmed sea lamprey, and I think that's the most memorable shoot that I've done on this, those sea lamprey, because they are just like nothing else you've ever seen, and they almost get, I suppose, a bit of a bad reputation because they are essentially big parasites, but they are stunning. You know, they've got mottled coloration, and I actually saw a very tender side to them, because the male caresses the female. He actually goes along her back to get her in the mood, essentially. And it was amazing seeing that. You know, this is a fish that had never seen before, and without this project I never would have seen, really. So it was amazing to see that, and to see all kinds of species, you know. So that was great. And another highlight really was last week I got to sit down with the editor and just see a very, very rough cut of the film, and it's looking good, and I am, you know, I'm quite confident that this is going to be really interesting for a lot of people to see. One of the messages of the film really was to just engage people who are interested in wildlife but don't have much of a knowledge on fish or some of the issues with fish. So I am hoping that more of a general wildlife audience is going to be able to watch this film and kind of learn a little bit. I mean, so we've got the premiere showing on April the 2nd in Nottingham, and pretty much all the local wildlife trusts, Leicester Wildlife Trust, Derby Wildlife Trust, Nottingham Wildlife Trust and Lincoln Wildlife Trust, representatives from all of those are going to be there. I think we've got some people from the RSPB coming along as well. Various river trust groups are coming, so lots and lots of different people. So it's going to be a really good event, and I'm quite looking forward to that. I do go fishing. I mean, one of the things, like I said, I've had fantastic support from anglers, but this isn't strictly an angling film. That being said, I mean, I do go fishing with Matt Hayes in it, but the film really is, the whole point of this with me and Matt fishing was to catch a non-native fish, a zander, and show it to the camera. It wasn't really about the fishing, it was more about the fish. So it's not a fishing film, but it is certainly of interest to anglers. But I do fish. I started fishing when I was 11. Before that, I've always been interested in wildlife, little sticklebacks in jam jars and catching frogs, and I still do that now, to be honest. But I do fish. I don't really fish very often, just because most of my time now is spent filming the fish, and to be honest, it almost spoils the fishing because I do enjoy watching the fish on the camera more in a way than catching them. That being said, someone puts a rod in my hand, then I'm keen to go fishing. But yeah, I don't go fishing very often at all now. But I used to enjoy sea fishing when I was living in Cornwall. I enjoy fly fishing, and I enjoy coarse fishing. So much like my filming, I pretty much fish for everything. Well, I mean, obviously the DVD for the film's going to be launched. Very limited release DVD. There aren't going to be many. It's mostly going to be a pay-per-view online. So the film's going to be filmed, it's going to go online, and then you pay a small fee to watch it online. There will be some DVDs, but not many. In terms of other projects that I'm doing, I would still like to try and tick off the remaining species if I can. You know, some of them were essentially sea fish. About 7 of the species that I missed were things like golden grey mullet, sea bass, which do come into rivers, but they're not strictly freshwater, so I wasn't too bothered that I didn't get them. But certainly the shad. I've got about 5 or 6 people who run beats on the River Wye, and I've told them, as soon as you see some shad running up there, you let me know and I will be there to film shad. It's a species that's never been filmed underwater before, so I'm really looking forward to doing those. River lamprey, I filmed brook lamprey, I filmed sea lamprey, I didn't film river lamprey, so I'm hoping to get those this year. And I really want to do Vendace, which I've mentioned. You know, they're the rarest freshwater fish in the UK. I'm just waiting for a survey to be done in the Lake District, and I'll go along. It might even just be a picture in the hand, but I think for people to just see these fish would be fantastic. I'm also hoping to do a big film, really in my own time, of London waterways underwater, because I think London is an amazing place, and it's actually, people are trying to make it into a national park at the minute. But people have this perception of the River Thames and the waterways being very heavily dirty and polluted, and there are lots of problems with pollution still. But some of the waterways in London are crystal clear, and they are full of not only fish, but, you know, lots and lots of different wildlife. And I would love to do a project kind of showing off what lives underwater in London. So that's something that I'm going to do hopefully this year. And also, I mentioned angling. I would love to have a crack at doing an angling series, but that's just an idea at the moment. I haven't really confirmed anything, but I'd like to have a go at that. But yeah, Beneath the Waterline comes out 2nd of April is the premiere. We've then got a showing in London on the 8th, which is actually fully booked now, that's sold out. And we've got a showing in Bristol on the 14th of April. After that, the film will be available for pay-per-view online, and a small number of DVDs as well. So it's been fantastic, and I hope a few of you enjoy watching it.